This guy spent his entire life working towards his ascension, but instead he got thrown across the universe. King was a cultivation prodigy, someone who broke through levels faster than anyone else. But when the moment of ascension arrived, everything went wrong. Rather than reaching the immortal world, he crashed straight into a passing alien spacecraft. Thinking the process worked, he calmly introduced himself to his new friends. The aliens, however, responded by pulling out ray guns and chasing him through the ship, yelling about repair costs and the damage he caused to their spacecraft. After barely escaping getting blasted apart, they finally talked things through. While helping them out with some acupuncture techniques, King realized the truth. His ascension completely failed and he got stranded in a distant world. Now stuck in space, he spent the next few months working as a freelance rescuer, using his cultivation knowledge in this new world to save aliens across different planets and getting paid for each job. The money was his only hope of finding a way back home. Not long after that, the opportunity for him to return home finally arrived when he saw an old man in distress who promised his entire fortune as a reward for saving his life. But he wasn't the only one. A female demon sharpshooter wanted the prize for herself, resulting in two immediately clashing over the money. Before they knew it, the fight spiraled out of control to the point that King even transformed into a blue whale, and both of them completely forgot about the old man. Before things could get worse, Interstellar guards arrived and wiped out the surrounding monsters. Realizing the reward was gone, both fighters agreed to run, but were caught instantly by the guard's captain. While being taken to prison, King kept chatting with the demon sharpshooter, trying to make friends, and almost got the whole ship blasted to oblivion thanks to his annoying non-stop talking. But then disaster struck. While being transported to prison, they came across a massive cosmic creature, and the whole ship got swallowed in one bite. The prisoners tried to escape from the belly of the monster, only for the monster to release billions of sperm cells that failed to race and got wiped out almost instantly inside the monster's stomach. And that was how King's wild journey through space began. This story is called Celestial in the Cosmos, and if you are enjoying it so far, stick till the end for the full recap. It all started when King was just a child, but unlike most of the kids around his age, he was exceptionally talented in cultivation, and thanks to that, he quickly rose through the ranks and gained the favor of a lot of his teachers. And before long, King became the youngest cultivator who was ready to break through to a major realm. And soon that day arrived. Everyone was gathered around to witness this momentous occasion as King began his ascension to the next major realm. But halfway through, something unexpected happened as he saw a giant metal disc flying straight at him at full speed. Before King could react, a massive explosion tore through that part of the ship, but luckily he was still alive and in one piece. Gathering his thoughts, he opened his eyes to see where he was and saw two green-skinned creatures staring back at him who looked just as confused as our hero. With that, the story fast-forwards a couple of months, and a giant monster was seen marching through a futuristic city, along with its army of whatever these things are. Well, anyway, pretty straightforward, monsters running rampant, destroying everything in sight, with scared civilians running to save themselves from being crushed to death or eaten alive by these things. In that same place was a pony-headed alien who got stuck underneath some rubble with his friend trying to help him get free, but no matter how much he pulled, it was no use. Seeing them struggling, another alien nearby, instead of helping him out, started laughing because they were still waiting for the Interstellar guard to arrive and save them while calling for a private rescue, which according to him was more reliable. Just then, another alien appears on the screen, and this, folks, is the private rescue that Fat Alien was talking about. And just like that, poof, the alien was in the air, being taken away to safety, which obviously surprises the ink pen-headed alien. Before long, another shiny spaceship arrives to take the remaining survivors. And then the third, and this one basically just pulls up the whole damn building from the ground, which obviously was a huge flex on the other private rescuers. In the same place was a female alien who was still waiting for her private rescue to arrive and was wondering what could be taking them so long. She was already daydreaming about her knight in shiny armor and his badass ship, who was going to pull her out of this nightmare. Not far from her, another person was seen making his way towards the location, and the first thing they saw after arriving at the place was a massive, hideous tentacle monster-looking creature giving birth to countless smaller versions of itself. But ignoring the thing, the person landed next to that female and apologized for taking too long to arrive. Is it just me, or is this guy dressed just like Galactus from Marvel Comics? Well, anyway, safe to say this was definitely not what she had in mind when she imagined her hero, and she was so disappointed that she straight up told the person to get lost. The kid, however, assured the girl that his trusty sword doubled as a flying vehicle, and he could easily fly her out of danger using the sacred treasure. But the woman was having none of it, so she snapped at the fool, telling him to take a look at all those other rescuers who brought all those cool-looking ships, while he came on a tiny twig, while charging just as much as the rest of them. Yeah, then they turned towards the ships and saw this, and the woman immediately pressed brakes on her rant. But wait, this wasn't even the best part, because the second ship was basically dumping all those survivors straight into the mouths of those monsters. It was like a scene from the anime Blood Sea. Same thing with that last ship, because the tentacle monsters easily managed to bring it to the ground, and with that kaboom, the whole thing crashed, causing a massive explosion that shook the entire place. As for the woman who was watching everything with her jaw hanging, she wasn't able to believe her eyes, and realizing it was her turn next, she turned to our hero, who was already apologizing for not meeting her expectations, and bolted from the place. As for the monsters, they spotted their next snack trapped underneath that rubble, so they started running toward her to grab the last slice of meat. But our hero, though, was focused on more important matters because his sect forbade him from coming into contact with another woman, so he wasn't sure how he was supposed to free her from there. Yeah, that was the last thing the woman was expecting to hear coming from his mouth at a time like this, so she told him to stop wasting time and just pull her out. Our boy, though, was taking this matter really seriously because he didn't want her to get the wrong idea that he was taking advantage of her because of the situation. Furious, the woman shouted at the fool, saying she doesn't care how he does it, just pull her out of this nightmare. With that, the story cuts back a couple of years, when our hero was receiving the sacred treasure from his master, who gifted him this item after he became the youngest person alive to master the sword riding technique. On that day, this sword wasn't the only thing he received from his master. The second gift was a technique called the Imperial Green Bamboo Sword Art. Back in the present, our hero is seen flying out with beauty in hand, followed by a sea of green goo and alien intestines blasting all over the place. Surrounding people froze in disbelief because that man somehow took out a whole army of those monsters all on his own, and some of them were even calling him some savior or whatever, possibly some prophecy in this world or something. As for the woman, she instantly fell for the fool after seeing how cool he was and asked for his name. Our boy, acting cool, answered that he was a cultivator from Shuangguang Mountain and introduced himself as Yi Zhen King. Chapter 2, and we are taken back to the time our hero met those two green-skinned aliens for the first time, and thinking they were some angels here to escort him to the world of immortals. He greeted them both, saying he was a cultivator who had attained his Tao and ascended to this immortal realm, after which he extended his hand, asking which sect both of them belonged to. Yeah, both aliens just kept staring at the fool, wondering if he hit his head or something, while blasting that hole through their ship, after which they stared at each other for a second to check if both of them were seeing what they thought they were seeing. In the very next second, our hero was seen running for his life as both of them blasted him with their laser guns, demanding he pay for damages he caused to their ship. Our boy, though still unable to understand what was going on, wondered if this was some kind of greeting in this world, or if he was being tested by these great immortals to see if he was worthy to step foot into this new world of immortality. That was until his eyes landed on something and he froze, because outside the window of the ship was a sight he wasn't expecting, since the place looked nothing like the heavenly world from the scriptures. And at that moment, it finally hit him. He was screwed. His ascension failed and he somehow got stranded in some far galaxy millions of light years away from his home. Back to the present, and our hero was bidding farewell to the beauty who promised to call him again next time she finds herself in trouble. But let's be real, that's not the only reason she asked for his personal number. As for our hero, he couldn't care less because the only thing he was after was the money, which successfully got transferred to his account, and with that taken care of, he prepared to head back home to get some rest. Meanwhile, not far from him, an old man was seen hanging from a metal support beam, and since his communication thingy broke during the whole chaos, he wasn't able to call for help. So in his desperation, he started screaming for help, promising to transfer his entire fortune to the one who saves him from this nightmare, and that someone just happened to pass by at the perfect time. And after hearing what the man was offering, he immediately changed course and started flying straight to the location. But just then, as he was about to reach the old man, he noticed a bright flash of light that was coming straight at him. And before he could understand what was going on, he got blasted by a powerful energy beam and went crashing through the nearby buildings. As for the one responsible, yeah, they were calmly drinking some booze while commenting that it was too easy. And damn, that's one healthy-looking demon mommy. Sorry, I mean demon girl. As for her name, she is known by the name Crimson Alex, also called the Demon Sharpshooter, along with her two trusty sidekicks, the one with the box-shaped head, Rokaka, and the rounded-headed one, Karoro. And apparently, she's pretty famous around these parts and is known as the legendary, terrifying drunkard demon. And there is a reason she is called that, because she has a serious drinking problem, which makes her completely unpredictable. Even now, if it wasn't for her two sidekicks on her shoulders, she would have blasted her own head off. Just then, she heard Rokaka telling the girl to get her head back in the game because someone already saved that old man. Sure enough, turning around, she saw that the old geezer was nowhere to be seen. Cut to the old man who was in our hero's arms and was promising to our boy he won't go back on his word as long as he brings him to the safe area. But then boom, a hail of bullets suddenly came flying in, launching the old man into the air while throwing our boy off his sword. As for the one responsible, she managed to catch the old man before he got his head smashed in by crashing into the ground, and after seeing the red-skinned demon mommy standing before him, the old man immediately changed sides and promised to give her everything he owned. But then it happened again. The old man got thrown once more as massive bamboo trees shot from the ground, startling the girl in the process, and the old geezer plopped right into our hero's arms. By then, the poor old man was completely done, and knowing full well he has more chances of surviving with those monsters than these two lunatics, he begged our boy to hang him back up where he found him first. Cut to the demon waifu who had enough of this nonsense and was planning something big to take out our boy, And that something big was this big-ass cannon thingy which she pulled out of Rokaka's belly. And since it was clear our boy wasn't going to let her have that reward, she was fully prepared to send both of them to the afterlife. With that, she pulled the trigger, and a gooey, slimy substance got launched out of the weapon. And seeing the thing coming, our hero immediately threw the old man out of the way, and as a result, got hit by that massive blob of whatever it was, which trapped him completely. Not just trapped, he wasn't even able to move his body, although he did have the helmet that was allowing him to breathe. Meanwhile, the demon girl had the poor weeping old man in her hand and was flying towards the safe zone to receive her payment. Watching them leave, our hero knew if he didn't do something fast, his reward would get stolen, and since it was clear that the woman had no intentions of backing away, he prepared to face her using his full power. With that, the story cuts once more to the past. The time two masters entered into the room containing their sect's secret techniques because something there was making their whole mountain shake like crazy. And when they saw what it was, both men froze in horror at the sight, because in front of them was a kid who somehow managed to get his hands on their immortal's wine, which he completely devoured, and under its influence, that kid was practicing one of the highest level techniques of their sect. And that kid, who else but our hero, who completely devastated that part of the palace under the influence of alcohol. Back in the present, that massive water bubble suddenly burst open, which immediately caught the attention of the demon girl and her two friends. And when they turned to see what was going on, they saw a gigantic blue whale, which our hero had transformed into, and the massive body of the multi-ton monster was coming straight at all of them. Before the woman could even react, our hero slammed straight into her, and once again the poor old man was seen floating through the air. And after all that drama, crying and screaming, guess what happened? He ended up right back at the spot from where our hero first saved him. So yeah, of course, he starts cursing at both of them for putting him through all that crap, only for him to end up back in that exact same spot. His screaming attracted the attention of some nearby. I don't even know how to describe these things yet. Well, whatever, not like it mattered, because at that very exact second, a bunch of cannon shells were seen tearing through those monsters. But it didn't stop there. Whoever it was, they were planning on eradicating all of these monsters from the city. All that sound even caught the attention of our boy and his future waifu, who turned to see what was going on, only to see a massive ship appearing out of the smoke, and the thing was coming straight at them. Upon looking closer, they saw that it was the Interstellar Guard who finally arrived after the whole city was devastated. Classic police behavior showing up after everything's already destroyed. Chapter 3. And we are back with the two green-skinned aliens, and for some reason both sides look pretty tense, as if an awesome all-out brawl was about to start. And the face-off just kept getting intense by the second. But turns out I was wrong. It wasn't a face-off. Our hero was actually giving acupuncture to the two aliens as an apology for destroying half of their ship, and somehow they even became good friends. Because the taller alien went ahead and scanned through their whole database to find the world our hero came from. But turns out there is no such place in their whole star sector by the name of Shuangguang Mountain. This made no sense to our hero because he was sure his homeworld shouldn't be that far from here. After all, he crashed into their ship during his ascension, meaning he couldn't have traveled that far. Well, first, this was their first time hearing about this ascension or whatever he kept rambling about, and second, if anyone asks, they never hit him. Instead, he appeared in front of their vehicle out of nowhere, and both of them crashed into each other. Our boy, though, still wasn't convinced that they were unable to locate his world, so the fat one asked what if he never ascended the whole way? What if he only made it halfway and was now someplace so far from his own world that they weren't even able to detect it? Back in the present, those bullets were shredding through all those baby-faced monsters. It was a massacre, with chunks of those things flying everywhere. As for the few survivors, they stared at the whole scene in disbelief as a whole squad of those interstellar guards appeared out of the ship to sweep the entire area. Some were even mounting those flying saucers to provide support fire, but even that wasn't the coolest thing for the viewers. The one thing that had all of them hyped the most was a tall, broad-shouldered man who was seen walking toward the main brain of all those monsters. And watching the destruction around him, the man wasn't happy, so to end it quickly, he propelled himself toward the giant monster like a human harpoon and tore through the monster's massive body with just one leap. As for the Dragon Ball Z-style characters, all their jaws were hanging, seeing that man one-shot that massive thing into oblivion. And for his identity, this handsome man with a jawline sharper than steel is the captain of the Interstellar Guard named Thunder. And of course, he won the hearts of all the ladies with his good looks, and mostly because of that jawline. But the man didn't even bother giving those women another look. Instead, he contacted his men to start the rescue operation. Fast forward, and all of the Namakians were seen being taken to the hospitals for immediate treatment. Even that old man got saved in the end, no thanks to the two fools who almost turned him into a casualty of their stupid scuffle. And there was no way this old fool was letting these two off the hook so easily, so he shouted for the cops to arrest both of them, because instead of saving him from those monsters, these two toyed with him like a stray dog. Yeah, both of them knew they were doomed, so they immediately took to the sky to escape, but they forgot about Thunder, and the man caught up to both of them without even trying. Next panel, and they were handcuffed and were thrown into one of the ships to be taken back to prison, but they weren't alone. A couple more prisoners were also packed inside the vehicle, waiting to be taken to their new homes. Thunder offered to escort everyone back to headquarters himself, but his little friend reminded him he had already been working non-stop for 100 hours and suggested he should rest. But the Chad was built different and was ready to go another 100 hours no problem. With that, he took off, and just before heading out, he placed the green one in charge of handling the rescue operation. Next panel, and ship number 601 was seen departing to the main headquarters. Cut to the inside, and a future power couple were seen silently sitting inside the spacecraft. Deciding to break the silence, our boy tried making small talk, but the girl wasn't in the mood. But he wasn't giving up, so he mentioned some stupid saying from his homeworld about friendship and stuff. But again, the woman wasn't in the mood. But the annoying one wasn't taking a hint, so he kept going. And this time he tried comparing her pulling weapons out of her little friend's belly to his own summoning spells. Yeah, that was the last straw. The woman completely lost it and prepared to blast the smiling fool along with the ship to the afterlife. Fast forward once more, and the ship was seen flying through the vast emptiness of space, making its way toward its destination. And inside, both of them had finally quieted down, well, for a minute at least, because our loudmouth fool couldn't keep that trap of his shut for even a second, and asked the girl if she really was that desperate about money that she even ended up going all out on him back then. Well, damn right, she was desperate about money. She was planning on buying the most terrifying, the most destructive weapon in the universe, but he ruined it all. But our sweet-tongued idiot wasn't done, nor was he buying that she was a bad person who would do such a thing. After all, he saw her with his own eyes helping all those people. Not to mention she even let Thunder Guy arrest her, even though she was more than strong enough to overpower him and escape. Yeah, not helping. If it were a human girl, maybe he would have rizzed her up with that cheesy line. But this right here is a demon waifu who needs fireworks, gold, and most importantly a miracle before being impressed by the likes of him. But still, she was curious to know why he was pushing himself so hard for money. Not like he had a family to support. Well, turns out the reason really was his family. The one he left behind in his own world, and this money was his only chance of returning back home. Yeah, the girl wasn't impressed by that reason, but just then, in the middle of their conversation, something happened, and the whole place flared up with warning alarms. Before they knew it, the whole ship started swaying, causing all the inmates to be flung through the whole room. Meanwhile, at the cockpit, Thunder was seen staring at something from the window in confusion, and that something was a massive mouth. This thing was so huge it made planets look like pebbles in front of it, and before they had a chance to turn around, the gigantic monster clamped its mouth and swallowed the whole ship along with anything else that came in its path. With that, everything went completely black. Next panel, the red demoness was seen regaining consciousness after that whole mess. Looking around, she found herself in a completely different place. Confused, she turned to see where she was and noticed all the inmates who were just as confused as she was. After some time, all of them were gathered around to try and figure out what happened, and how did they end up in this place. Just then, one of them speculated maybe this was the Interstellar guards' prison, and they were knocked out before being brought in here. But that obviously wasn't the case, because if it really were a cellar, then they wouldn't be standing here with the captain of the guards. Meanwhile, the captain himself was lost in his thoughts, wondering what that thing was that he saw just before losing consciousness. But since he knew they didn't have any time to lose, he swung his fist towards the walls of the place, but to his surprise, his fist just got bounced back by whatever the substance was. Upon observing it closely, he realized that the substance was unlike anything he had seen his entire life, and somehow it was even blocking all signals from reaching to the outside, meaning he won't be able to contact the headquarters to call for help. But he was sure if he had a powerful laser cannon, he would have easily blasted a hole through this wall. Just then, he heard a voice from the back calling out to him, and yup, it was our favorite waifu holding just what he was asking for. But the man was more curious to know why she was pointing that thing at his face. The rest of them were also confused and asked the girl what was she planning on doing with that thing. Well, it turns out, unlike all of them, she wasn't an idiot, because she knew full well, even if they managed to escape from this place, they would just end up in another box if this man was kept alive. So, she was planning on taking care of him first before blasting a hole through this whole place. Thunder, however, wasn't intimidated because even with this weapon, she wasn't strong enough to stop him. Yeah, he should have kept his mouth shut because now even the other inmates were starting to band together behind this girl to stop him. Next panel, and Thunder was seen sitting on the ground, completely tied up by our girl's reinforced bindings. Not just that, she armed one of the guys to keep an eye on him so he wouldn't try anything funny. As for Alex herself, she was ordering the rest of the men to follow her because they were burning a hole through that wall. But just then a hand appeared telling the girl to stop. I mean, this was to be expected from our righteous fool, because he was telling the girl to stop whatever she was doing since they can't go against the law, and demanded she free the man. Yeah, no, he and his big mouth. The girl didn't even bother wasting time on him and simply slapped another belt around his body and threw him right alongside Thunder. The man was thankful for what our hero tried to do for him moments ago, but there was a question about our hero that was really bugging him. So he asked if he hit his head or something when he was little, because he clearly was the biggest idiot he met his entire life. Our hero burst into laughter at that comment and apologized to the man because he was right about that. He did act on impulse back there, and seeing him laughing in such a serious situation made Thunder get even more hopeless, because he was sure both of them were going to end up getting digested into a pile of scrap. That digested part shocked our hero, so he asked the man to clarify. Thunder revealed the truth to our hero, explaining what he saw outside their ship before everything went dark. It was a mouth of something massive, and he was sure right now they were inside the stomach of that creature. Although that was surprising, our hero had a few questions of his own, like what happened to their ship and who freed all of them from their restraints. Yeah, turns out Thunder never even thought of that, and because of that, he started ranting some gibberish, anything that might explain their situation and what happened to their ship. And our hero, seeing him panic, really started getting worried and asked the man to get a grip. Just then a massive laser was seen shooting at the wall of the place, but while our girl was busy trying to burn through the place, one of the men behind her asked her to turn around because they might be in trouble. Annoyed, the woman reminded the man she was busy and didn't have time for useless nonsense. But then her eyes landed on the thing the man was pointing towards, and she froze, because on the ceiling, a crack was starting to form for some reason. And this crack wasn't a crack, because the thing looked like the mouth of a creature that was slowly opening on its own. And from within that mouth they spotted something covered in slime falling towards them. Upon looking closer, they noticed the creature looked like some tentacle monster, so one of them decided to take a closer look, and after examining the thing, he told the rest that the thing seemed harmless. Yeah, harmless. He let his guard down at the worst time possible, and bam, that thing suddenly showed its true self by biting that fat alien's head into pieces. As for the rest, all of them froze as the motionless body of that man plopped to the ground. As for the creature, it leaped at some distance for some reason, and damn, that thing looks hideous, not just on the outside but also on the inside. As for the remaining survivors, who were trying to figure out what that thing was, one of them sensed some movement from the ceiling, so he turned to see what it was, only to find that giant mouth vomiting out thousands of those semen-faced monsters into the room. And the things didn't waste any time and went straight at the remaining survivors, and with that, a massacre began, with the whole place filling up with agonizing screams. As for the two tied in a corner, yeah, they kept staring at the whole scene in stunned silence as those monsters shredded through everyone in sight. The remaining aliens tried running, but there were just too many of those monsters, and as a result, most of them got slaughtered, until a few of them remained. So the one made out of stone sacrificed himself to save some of the survivors and buy them some time to escape. Cut back to Earth on top of Shuangwan Mountain, where a massive palace stood. Inside one of the rooms, a man was heard complaining about our hero and how he never even bothered to contact them after his ascension. It was his old master who, after so much time, finally decided to check up on our hero and see if his ascension went smoothly. With that, he pointed his fingers towards a flower in the room, causing the thing to release some kind of gas, which slowly started forming some kind of a cloud in front of the old man. And when he looked through that gas cloud, his eyes went wide at the sight before him. Cut back to the belly of the beast, where those sperms were still going around, munching down on anything in sight. Just then, one of the monsters leaped at a purple-skinned alien, and just as the thing was inches away from sending him to the afterlife, a fist came flying and blew the monster into pieces. And what do you know, it was the captain himself who finally had enough and decided to take care of this himself. After hitting that cool pose, he started running around the whole place, taking out every sperm monster that came in his path. Seeing him taking out those monsters even fired up our hero, so he prepared to lend the man a hand as well, but in the heat of the moment, he forgot he was still a scrawny little cultivator who was nothing without his techniques. Oh yeah, and of course those creatures were still hungry, so after taking out most of the survivors, they leaped at our hero as well. Well damn, I thought someone was going to appear and save him, but no. Those things dove in like missiles, causing the place to fill up with dust as some kind of liquid was seen splashing out of that small explosion. But turns out that liquid didn't come from our hero, but from those creatures themselves who, when diving at him, failed to notice he had already transformed into a giant moose, and all of them got impaled on the massive antlers on our hero's head. This even shocked the remaining survivors because this was their first time seeing a creature like that. And then right before their eyes, that creature slowly started transforming back into our hero. And they saw him awkwardly standing there with those massive antlers growing out of his skull, which he failed to retract after turning back into a human. Meanwhile, Thunder was busy taking out the remaining monsters, and in the middle of that, he turned towards the survivors asking where that red-skinned devil was because she was their only hope of breaking out of this place. Well, turns out she had already escaped while they were all distracted in that chaos, and the only question in their heads was how, because none of them could understand how she even squeezed through that tiny hole carrying all that cargo behind her. And I hope this one doesn't die because this alien is a savage, and he was the first one to refuse squeezing through that hole because, well, you can read it yourself. Anyway, getting back to topic. One of them suggested they use force to pry open this hole and escape that way. Cut to our girl, who was seen running through the place thinking she finally managed to escape. But of course, it's never that easy now, is it? Because while running, she came across something completely unexpected. And the thing was a gigantic version of those sperm monsters, and the thing looked hungry. Cut back to the survivors, who, while pulling at that hole, were caught off guard as a massive tentacle shot into the room through that hole, resulting in them getting launched into the air. But that wasn't the only shocking thing here, because that tentacle had our Alex in its grasp, who was shooting at the thing trying to free herself. But no matter how much she tried, the thing wasn't budging. On top of that, her weapon seemed to have no effect on the creature as well. Cut to some other place, and well, turns out they weren't the only ones inside the body of this massive monster. Someone else was also here who was monitoring all of them through their screen, and this individual was probably the same person who took all of them out from their ship and locked them inside that room. But this giant tube for a head isn't the real boss of this place, but instead a person by the name of Lord Nixera, and he was reporting to that person about the progress of their new candidates and how 3 of them stood out the most. Back in the room, the gang was finally done taking out all the sperm monsters, with Thunder ordering all of them to spread out and start searching for an exit because they can't afford another wave of these monsters. But then a mini Frankenstein barged in halfway through his explanation, acting all hyped, saying how 3 of them were insane back there, but of course someone had to teach him it's rude to cut someone off when they are speaking, and that someone struck. Startled, Thunder shouted for the rest to watch out, but it was already too late. Whoever it was had already fired their weapon, resulting in the remaining survivors getting blown into pieces right before their eyes. Turning toward the one responsible, they saw a path opening up to the side, with a woman walking in along with her tube-faced minions, and the first thing they heard coming from her mouth was, and I quote, "You have risen above a pile of trash to your life forms. I'm starting to see where the artist's taste lies. I mean, just look at this tall glass of water, truly fierce." Anyway, she introduced herself to our gang as Nexera, the ruler of this domain, who personally came to fetch the 3 of them because they were creatures truly worth her attention. As for the ones who didn't make it, well, they got the privilege of rotting into a puddle of sludge, whatever that meant. After she was done speaking, she ordered her tube heads to take the 3 to their designated life pods. Thunder, however, still had a question, so he asked the woman to stop, after which he asked if she was the one behind everything, or if it was someone else. Then he launched into his righteous rant, telling the woman the people she slaughtered mercilessly for her little game might have been scum, but they still didn't deserve death, and asked if she really believed they deserved to be torn apart by monsters. Yeah, no hesitation, the woman replied with a yes. That's all Thunder wanted to hear, so he immediately leaped at the woman to knock some sense into her, but before he could, one of the 2 monsters pressed a button, resulting in some kind of device inside Thunder's neck being activated, sending electricity through his whole body. Man, they straightened him up, pulling a page straight from Amanda Waller's book there. Seeing them taking out Thunder so easily, Alex also brought out her guns to blast the fools into oblivion. But Nexera wasn't about to let that happen, so before our girl could pull the trigger, she did something, and both guns in our girl's hands started dismantling on their own. With both powerhouses down, our hero realized it was now up to him to save the day, so he started walking up to the woman despite Thunder telling him not to. Standing before the woman, he demanded that the woman tell them her name. And damn, this woman is even taller than our hero. As for Thunder, seeing our hero walking up to the enemy so casually froze, and since our hero looked so confident, he wondered what could he be planning. Yeah, no, he wasn't planning anything. Not only planning, but he wasn't even thinking anything when he walked up to that woman. As for Thunder, he lost it. Yeah, his rage was justified here. The fool deserved it for trying to act cool. Meanwhile, our other powerhouse was just sitting there to the side, completely giving up after seeing how terrifyingly powerful that woman was, and she knew there was no saving them from her. And to make it even worse, she heard Thunder warning the 2 not to do anything reckless, because these people had already implanted all of them with some kind of device in their necks and suggested they do as these people were saying for now. Meanwhile, the tall lady was getting bored with everything, so she ordered the tube heads to take all of them away. Following Thunder's instructions, none of them resisted this time. Well, maybe Alex did a little, but it was more of a warning than resistance for the fools, as she told them not to get too handsy with her. As for our hero, he never resisted either, because in his head he was trying to process why all of this was happening in his life. After all, he was born a prodigy and lived his life pretty smoothly up until the day of his ascension. That was when he recalled the day he overheard some of the elders discussing about him. Curious, our hero decided to eavesdrop on their conversation and heard one of the elders showing concern about our hero and how fast he was rising the ranks and now was so close to ascending to immortality. But it wasn't because that man had anything against him, but rather because he was concerned about the boy, since everyone before him had to endure either the 3 calamities or 8 tribulations, even overcoming inner demons, which were a kind of test from the heavens for these chosen ones. But this kid didn't have to face any of that, and he was afraid for the child's future. But the second elder assured him the boy had already surpassed most of them and was more than ready to face whatever destiny held for him. As for tribulations, they were unavoidable. If they didn't happen now, they would happen later. Back in the present, our hero was wondering if his masters were right and if this could be the tribulations destined by the heavens for him. Fast forward, and they were seen walking through the halls of the facility with Big Lady leading way. While walking, Thunder asked the woman who they were and what was this place, and if they didn't fear the Interstellar Guard, who were sure to level this place if they found out what they were doing inside this facility. The woman calmly answered by first humiliating his precious Interstellar Guard, calling them nothing but glorified security guards. As for them, they were the dominators of the cosmos, far beyond anything their tiny headquarters could ever reach. Just then, they arrived at the holding area where our girl noticed countless doors. And I mean countless. As far as she could see, there were cells holding all sorts of aliens. Just then she heard screaming coming from one of the rooms, and that scared her a little. Our hero was also curious to know what was going on inside that room and what could be causing so much noise, so using the chance, he activated one of his talismans, and the thing started folding into something on its own, and within seconds it took the form of a frog. After it was fully activated, the thing started hopping toward the door from where that screaming was coming from and managed to slip in through the crevices. After entering the room, it did something. That small eye on its back connected to our hero, and he saw an ugly-looking green alien holding a brain in his hand. As for the screaming, yeah, they didn't need to worry about it disturbing them tonight. But our hero wasn't done. He guided his toad friend to check the next room. The thing obeyed, and let's just say he intruded on some intense bonding session between a couple, and judging by what was going on in there, dinner clearly came after dessert. Yikes, I actually flinched a little here. What was the artist on when drawing this part? Yeah, even our hero could tell he was interrupting something very personal, so he quickly decided to move on to the next cell. Well, pretty much the same story in every room. Two highly aggressive aliens locked with each other, each trying to devour the other, and by the time he was done peeping, our hero came to the realization. All of them were screwed. With that, they arrived outside their new home, and just from the look of it, our hero knew their new roommate wasn't going to be too friendly. But before he could warn the others, those two heads shoved the three into the icy room, and the last thing he saw before that door closed was the face of that woman who was welcoming them to their new home, and instructed them to behave with their new roommates, and with that the door completely slammed shut on them. With this chance in hand, our hero warned the two, telling them about all the horrors he saw in those other cells, and he was sure they would need to work together if they wanted to survive whatever monstrosity they were locked in with. That was until he looked back and saw this. Not gonna lie, this pointy-eared girl may have ears like a knife, but she's kind of fine. As for the other two, we have an alien version of Dullahan and a crossbreed between Pikachu from Pokemon and Bakugo from My Hero Academia. Next chapter, and the girl was introducing herself as Ireland, who suffers from an illness, so she needs to walk around with these things to keep her body functioning. As for her race, she is an elf. Since when did fantasy races start filing immigration papers into space? Anyway, moving on after that awkward cough by the girl. Second up is this android missing a head, named X70K, and according to the girl, he possesses a very gentle personality and is also the guardian of life who treats every living being with warmth and kindness. And finally, Toby. As for him, aside from always sticking half his butt out in a very intelligent way, he has absolutely no flaws. Yeah, the gang didn't even catch half the stuff that came out of her mouth. As for our hero, he was just happy they didn't end up in a room filled with psychopaths. Thunder, however, was a different story. He was still convinced this was another trap by that woman, so he told both of them to stay on their guard. But the green girl didn't even let him finish that line, as she told all of them they also prepared a welcome gift for their new roommates, which was something delicious she made with her own hands. Well, two of them were immediately on board because they were already starving, but Thunder reminded them of their situation, since food should be the last thing on their minds right now. His words ended up hurting the poor elf girl because she was the one who had made the welcoming treat herself despite how weak she was, and hearing him say all those hurtful things about her food made her heart ache. Seeing her crying like that, Thunder actually felt bad about saying all that stuff, but that didn't mean he was falling for her little act so easily. After all, he wasn't called the captain of the Interstellar Guard for nothing, so he told the girl to cut it with that act because she wasn't fooling anyone, because according to him, the three of them saw through her little trick a long time ago. But the thing was, the other two still had no clue what he was talking about, so he told them both this was clearly some kind of trap set by these three to make them drop their guards. Turning toward the girl, he asked if he checked all the boxes, but the girl refused to answer his question because he had deeply offended her by doubting her kindness with suspicion. So she told her Dullahan friend to lift the lid and show them what was on that plate. Her friend obeyed and slowly started to lift the metal cover from the plate. And well, it turns out it was just a cake. Thunder was just overreacting. Our demon girl, though, was not missing such a golden opportunity to roast the captain of the guards. So she told the man not to feel too bad because he wasn't half wrong. That girl made a calorie bomb meant to make them die from being too fat. Thunder, however, was still not convinced because he was sure there was more to this situation than what he was seeing, and the only explanation he could come up with was that this cake wasn't really a cake but something else. Just as he was moving closer to take a closer look at the thing, he heard some strange sound coming from the metal covering that was over the thing, so he immediately turned around to check, only to find a head hiding inside that thing, which had some kind of weapon sticking out of its mouth. Next panel, bam, he got blasted right in his face and went flying through the air, after which he crashed onto a nearby wall. It all happened so fast that the other two didn't even get a chance to react, and while they were turning to check up on Thunder, that robot guy was putting his head back on his shoulder. And well, I don't know if I should add this or not, but I think this guy is a masochist. I mean, he did say he enjoys torturing others and also the other way around. Or maybe I'm just overthinking this, but one thing I'm certain of is that this guy is into some real extreme shit. Well, anyway, seeing him coming, Alex immediately pulled out a weapon to defend herself, but before she had a chance to use the thing, someone tossed that cake straight on her face. Turning towards the one responsible, our hero saw that elf girl who was still acting all sweet and innocent, saying how she made that thing with sincerity and love. And with that creepy grin on her face, she asked our girl if she liked the taste of the cake so far. Well, it turned out that thing was more than just a cake. It had some kind of sticky substance hidden inside it, resulting in our demon waifu getting stuck to the ground with no way to fight back. Seeing that he was the only one left, our hero brought out his talisman to stop these three before things get out of hand any further, but then the girl pulled out that discount Pikachu and told our boy that he was going to be his opponent. Yeah, no, our boy refused to hit a child. Well, it turns out that yellow guy didn't appreciate being called a child. So in his anger, he stretched his body like a rubber band and leaped at our hero, yelling about being hundreds of millions of years old. Wait, that can't be real, but whatever. He said he was that old and managed to trap our hero inside his indestructible prison made out of his own body. As for Alex, she shouted for Kaworu to activate his super transformation, completely forgetting that guy was useless who can't do that. Just then, Elf Girl grabbed her by her face and asked the girl to look at her. Well, it turns out our little elf girl really likes red color, and she was dying to find out how many more colors she'd see underneath her skin. Next chapter, and she was seen holding a small knife in hand and was getting ready to start the procedure. But before she could, she heard our captain's voice shouting for the girl to stop. That actually shocked the two because something like this should be impossible. But here he was, the man standing right before them even after getting hit on his face with a full power attack from Freaky Guy's embarrassment pulse cannon. But our boy wasn't in the mood for chatter, so he swung his hand and launched the freaky android into the distance. But the guy was tougher than he looked, and he managed to land back on his feet. As for Captain, he was just getting started, and after everything that happened, he was at his limit, meaning he was done holding back. So in his anger, he started charging up his ki full-on Dragon Ball Z style and failed miserably at the final second, and started losing consciousness, and to everyone's surprise, the guy dropped face first in front of everyone. Remember when he was first introduced and his friend told him to take some rest because he had been working non-stop for over 100 hours? Yeah, turns out he should have listened because all that exhaustion finally hit him at the worst possible time. But for the freaky android, this was perfect, so he started pulling out a rope from his arm, and well, it wasn't just for tying him up if you catch my drift. I just hope that thing is sanitized. As for the one stuck with the freakiest of them all, she shouted for Thunder to get off his butt and do something, because if he didn't, this crazy elf was going to peel her like an apple. But no matter how much she screamed, it was no use. Both useless guys were completely immobilized. Cut to our boy, who was trying his hardest to break himself out of this thing. But no matter how much he pushed, the guy just wouldn't budge. So at first he decided to use his flame technique to burn his way out of this thing. But then he remembered he was dealing with a living, breathing creature, so obviously that was too cruel. Then he figured if he should turn into that whale and force this thing to pry open. But that didn't seem like a good idea either, because that blue whale is just too ginormous, meaning there was a chance he might accidentally hurt his friends in the process. So in the end, he decided to just use his second best transformation technique and hope for the best. Thinking that, he closed his eyes and started chanting some spells. With that, the story cuts once more to the time our hero was just a child and was learning this new technique while taking a dump. That was when his master also appeared in the room and showed surprise seeing our hero practicing in such a place, but since our hero was a bright and hard-working disciple, he didn't think much of it and just sat on a nearby bucket to do his own business. As for our hero, he told the man he had already mastered the transformation technique and was now advancing to the next level, where he was learning something called the Hu Tian technique. The old man was actually impressed seeing how quickly our boy was progressing, but then those words finally sank in and he realized this wasn't going to end well for any of them, especially him, because a latrine was the last place this foolish kid should be practicing that technique. Well, turns out he was right because the whole place got blasted the very next second, and you can already imagine what a big mess our hero caused for everyone that day. Back in the present, something caught our elf girl's eyes, so she turned around to look, only to find a giant hand that was slowly closing in on her. Next panel, and she got swatted like a bug off the demon girl and crashed into a nearby wall, causing her to lose consciousness. This immediately caught the attention of Freaky Android, so he turned to see what was going on, but before he could, another giant hand appeared and violently smashed him into a wall as well. Although he was still in one piece, he had no clue what this thing was that was pressing him against the wall, nor was he able to turn his head to get a clear look at what was causing it. As for Discount Pikachu, he also noticed something weird going on with his body, and in the very next second, he noticed a hand grabbing his head, followed by a massive figure that was slowly coming out of his rubber prison. Well damn, our boy just used Akimichi Clan's signature expansion jutsu to turn himself into a giant. Fast forward to a couple of minutes, and Elf Girl was seen lying on the ground with a broken nose. Freaky Android was still conscious and in one piece but was restrained in his own bindings. Pikachu was nowhere to be seen. As for our hero, he was changing back to his original size, and the first thing he did after showing the girl just how big he could get, and definitely not just in height, was to free her from the gooey restraints. And like a true gentleman, he took her into his arms and apologized for taking so long to rescue her. Although Alex appreciated that he saved her from that psycho elf girl, there was something she wanted to tell him, and she blurted out that if he didn't let go of her leg immediately, she was going to blast that sweet-talking mouth of his right off his shoulders. And this is the same guy who refused to touch that pink lady in Chapter 1. With that taken care of, our hero approached Thunder to check up on him, and luckily, he didn't seem to be seriously hurt. As for the freaky android, he demanded our boy release him from his restraints and use them properly, because, well, if he wanted to tie him up, he needed to do it the right way. Our girl, however, had had enough of these three pervs, so she warned the man to shut up, otherwise she was going to blast a hole straight through his skull. Just then her eyes landed on Elf Girl's face, and she immediately realized something was wrong. Fearing they might have gone a little too hard on the child, she prepared to check up on her to see if she was fine, and just as she got in range, bang, the girl suddenly sprang up and headbutted the girl right on her nose. That startled our girl, so she immediately recoiled, but the damage was already done. That girl managed to ruin her beautiful face, and the reason? This psychopath wanted to see the color of our girl's blood, and turns out it was black, her second favorite color. Alex, however, was done, and this time she wasn't even kidding when she said she was going to blow her brains out. Luckily, our hero stopped her just in time because they still needed to question them. Surprisingly, the elf girl immediately got on board and promised to answer anything he wanted to know. So our hero asked about this place and where they were. Turns out she was just as clueless as him. Second question, why were these people kidnapping strangers and locking them in these cells like animals, and what their purpose was? Same answer, no clue. That only ended up annoying Alex, so she asked if there even was anything she knew. The answer, still nothing. Not a single clue. Yeah, that was it. Alex was dead set on ending this girl for taking her for a fool. But our hero stepped in once more to save the girl, and on top of that, he realized these three were completely useless, so they would need to figure out another way of escaping this place on their own. Hearing their whispers, freaky android told both of them with full confidence that there was no use trying to break out of this prison because they already did and nothing worked, but if by any miracle they do succeed. Bam! He face planted on the ground, begging them both to take them along. Obviously, Alex refused, after all three of them tried killing her moments ago, and asked the man to give them one good reason. Well, turns out there were several reasons, the first being the elf girl's illness, because she wouldn't be able to survive in this place for long since her medication was already running low, and if it ran out completely, she wouldn't make it. Second reason was Pikachu, who was searching for his missing child and was captured by these people while searching through the galaxy. And finally, him with the most tragic story of them all. He was in search of his new master since he lost his original one a long time ago, and during his travel, he found someone, that tall, cold, and ruthless woman who ran this whole place. Ever since then, he had been desperately trying to reach her because only she had what it took to tame the fire that was burning inside him. Yeah, our innocent little boy had no clue what this man was talking about, because stuff like that was completely foreign territory to him. Our girl, however, was in no mood to explain what that man was hinting at, so she warned him not to fall for their lies, because they were clearly trying to trick them with their words again. Our boy agreed and asked the three about that tall lady and what they could tell them about her. Our girl spoke up and told our hero that from what she could see so far, that woman wasn't the real one in charge of this place. And those words she said to Thunder were really bothering her, about the ruler of this place being the dominator of the cosmos, because whoever that was had to be terrifyingly powerful. But Pikachu brushed it off. After all, he had lived in this world for thousands of years and had never once heard anything about this dominator, and he was sure that woman said those things just to scare all of them. Our hero, though, thought otherwise because he had heard something similar in his own world, and when Alex asked what it was, our boy told her about an entity from his original world. Someone said to be so powerful they could shake the entire earth. Cut to another place where a gigantic head, said to be the ruler of the three realms, was seen ordering someone to descend to the lower realm and track down the source of this turmoil that was spreading. Cut to our hero's old master, who seemed worried about something, and in front of him was an even older man with a giant mushroom growing on top of his head, who was reassuring him not to worry, because he was sure their Aqing was going to be just fine. Just as he said those words, the man spotted a shooting star that was falling from the sky coming straight towards them, and the thing crashed right beside both men. Surprised, the old master asked whoever it was to show themselves. A voice came from the smoke calling the old man brother, and when the man stepped out, they saw that it was a beastman by the name of Yellow Robe Monster, one of the 28 mansions, who came to discuss urgent business with the two men. Well, that's all for today, folks. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave the video a thumbs up, and if you want to know what happens next, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care.